All right, I guess we will call this meeting to order for the Curriculum Progress and Outcomes Committee. Do we have an approval for the minutes from last month?
So,
Any comments or corrections? Glad to see a lot of those things have come to pass.
Yeah.
And that they're now old business, right? Trust me.
exactly.
Any corrections or addendums that you'd like to make?
Oh,
You're
no,
good.
I was gonna follow up on a couple things today.
But as far as the minutes go,
Yeah, no, that's.
you're good. All right, so the minutes from last month are approved. And just we'll hold on to that for old business. All right, we have an overview of Child Find and SCT.
So
Ms.
can I
Jennings.
jump in before you
Sure.
do?
Absolutely.
So I had my team kind of just brainstorm things that we thought you might be interested in so that we could kind of have a list of topics. So you'll see at the bottom that the team has kind of said, oh, these topics may be interesting for the next CPO meeting. So I'm kind of doing that to give you an opportunity, like as we're agenda planning.
Okay.
If that's something you want, then we can put it on. The CTE, high demand jobs and credentialing, you had asked about that last month.
Yes.
And Mr. Haas is actually out this week on vacation, so that's why we're going to do it at the next month.
Okay.
So he'll talk about the CTE high demand jobs and introduce you to Zello, which is our new career planning platform. So we are just in hopes of kind of bringing you some things that we do under curriculum and instruction, things that are happening in our schools. But at any point, if there are other things, I can add them to the list of topics that you're interested in, and we can bump ours up a month and put yours in for next month. So I just thought it might help with planning, so we're not always trying to kind of brainstorm, so what are we gonna share? So you asked about Child Find last time, and so Mrs. Jennings, I asked her to put that together and share with you the Child Find brochures. And then, I can never say this right, is it Vivi? I had it like with phonetic symbols and everything in my notebook. And so Mr. Sexton's gonna share about some new technology we have called Vivi. And then I'm really excited, Ms. Kapler is actually gonna do a science lesson with us, showing some hands-on science stuff that is available to our teachers. So, I will now give it back to Ms. Jennings.
Yeah, I don't have anything to play with. I feel like,
I know, you
this
gotta
may
up
be
your
little
game a little
boring.
bit.
I know, I'm gonna have to up my game. I know, but Dr. Woodford did ask for us to kind of talk about what we do for child study procedures and kind of explain that piece of what we're looking at. So in Bedford County Schools, we actually follow the child study process. We know the purpose is that early identification of students with disabilities, making sure we're providing interventions if students may need those interventions and supports. And of course, it's according to IDEA and the Virginia regulations that we do have a child find process in place. Our child find is through what we call SCT, which is our school consultation team. And I'm realizing this isn't moving as we're going, so I apologize. So I just went over that. And again, as you're just looking at those purposes, it's in IDEA, it's in our Virginia regulations, and as well as our procedural safeguards and timelines. So when you look at Child Find, we have Child Find and referral. So referral is made, then a child study team meeting is held. We may, at that child study, decide, hey, we're gonna do interventions. We may decide to evaluate for special ed. And I'm gonna go more in detail to each one of these as well. And then after that, if we decide evaluation for special education, then we do an eligibility determination because we have criteria that we must follow to find a child eligible under an educational disability category. And if they're found eligible, then they'll have an IEP, implementation of the IEP, and then every 3 years they have a reeval. So that kind of gives you the process of when we are looking at finding a child with a disability. So who can refer? Pretty much anybody can refer a child to Child Find. It can be a parent, it can be a teacher, it can be other staff, it may be a physician, it may be a community agency. So anybody can make that referral. They can identify any child birth to 21. And this includes screenings, review of records, observations, whatever they may have, they can make that referral to us. Once that referral is made, we do have to meet within 10 days. So there's certain screenings that are required that we do within the school, and that's hearing, vision, and speech. And you can see there where they're required, what grades that we're doing, and any transfer kids that come in, and when we do them. So when they come to us, we do the vision, we do the hearing, and the teachers kind of look over the speech, and then if there's a screening for the speech therapist to come in and kind of observe as well. Anytime that any of these screenings come back that there's something not right or not developmentally appropriate, that is when we would refer that to the SET team ourselves because of those screenings. So those are required by law for us to do those. So once we decide there's a referral and we're going to meet, we have to meet within 10 business days. That is the law that's under IDEA and that's in our regulations. We're out of compliance if we don't meet within those 10 days. The meeting may include parents, educators, administrators, and specialists. It really depends on what we're meeting for. So say a teacher is concerned with a student's reading ability. They're not reading on grade level and they're really far behind. That referral will be made. We would want to make sure we have a reading specialist at the table, as well as a parent, special education teacher, general education teacher, and administrator. So there's 3 things that we can do in a meeting once a referral is made. Once we come to the meeting, we look at everything that we have. We can say, we suspect a disability, and we refer them for an eligibility. We can say, well, we see some things that are happening that may need some interventions, but we think with these interventions, we'll see the child grow. We don't really suspect a disability at this time, but we're gonna put in these interventions to see if they start meeting some of the pieces that they're missing. So it may just be like splinter skills they're missing that we're gonna work on through intervention. Or we come to the table, sometimes parent make a referral, they don't always, the developmental of students and where their child should be and they're concerned. And so we have the meeting and we find the child is doing well, meeting grade level expectations. There are no concerns, and we'll decide no further action is needed. So those are the 3 things that we can decide are outcomes from an SET or child study meeting. Another thing is if we continue to monitor, we put interventions in place and they work and the child is meeting and moving along and progressing, we may decide no further action either because there's no need for any more interventions. But this kind of helps us really follow what the regulations are set forth, that we are only assessing students that we truly feel or truly have the data that says that they may have a disability category. Because you don't want to find a child with a disability if they don't actually have a disability. It may be they just need some interventions, they need some accommodations to support and help them. So we're very careful with that as we go through what we do. So when we do continue to monitor, we do have that tiered interventions, those RTIs that we put in place. These are put in place in the general education classroom and setting. Students are pulled out. They may work with a reading specialist, a special ed teacher, any staff member to provide that intervention. We document that, we collect that data so that we have that data the next time we come to discuss that student. And the reason that we do these interventions is we want to see how the student is responding. Can the student progress? Is the student meeting the skills that we're asking them to meet? Again, I talked about no further actions. We reviewed all the information. There's no concerns. Students meeting everything, and so then there would be no reason for us to meet again. And then if we refer for that comprehensive evaluation, we review the information, we suspect a disability, we have to have parent consent. If parent does not give us consent to evaluate or provide assessments for their child, we cannot go any further in the process. So parent must give us consent to do so. It can include developmental, functional, academic, behavioral, all kinds of data that we'll need, and it has to come through a variety of sources. You can't just use one source. So many times we may have an outside report from a doctor, and parents sometimes are like, well, you have the report, it says my child has a disability. In the regulations under IDEA, it does say that we have to have a variety of information. So making sure we see how they're doing classroom performance, making sure that we're looking at, are they meeting grade level expectations through what we have, what district assessments have we provided to them, and what they're doing. So we have to have all of that information. And we generally do assessments, a psychological assessment, an educational, social cultural. We may do a medical if needed, if the child has some medical concerns, as well as an observation by the administrator and a hearing screening. We have 65 business days to complete all the assessments and to make sure they're completed, and then hold the eligibility meeting all within that 65 business days from the referral. So then at the eligibility determination meeting, we decide, do they meet the criteria? We have a list of criteria. We have a list of disabilities that are through VDOE and how a student meets that criteria. There's 3 questions that have to be answered as yes when we're looking at a student with an educational disability. Is there a presence of a disability? Does it adversely affect their educational performance? And if so, do they need specially designed instruction? And those 3 questions must be yes, and if they are, we'd proceed to an IEP. So the IEP, once a child has a disability, this IEP is written just for that child. We have their presence level of performance. We know where they're performing, what their needs are. We plan goals, services, accommodations. Parents are always part of every team. Every team that I've been talking about, from child study to eligibility to IEP, parents are included as part of the team members. And we must develop the IEP within 30 calendar days of the eligibility meeting. So just in summary, the reason we do SET, the reason we do Child Find, number one, we have an obligation to our children to make sure if they have a disability that we have that process in place. But that's also under IDEA and the regulations of how we're supposed to do when we're looking at special education. It ensures that early identification to make sure that if children are struggling or children aren't meeting those developmental or educational skills and milestones, that we're identifying them and providing them the support and help that they will need. We always have clear steps, timelines, all of those things. Parents are always partner every step of the way, like I said. And we always focus on what is educationally appropriate for the child. And I think that's all that I have. It's a very quick overview. I've also provided you a pamphlet, and I have more if you'd like to have some, Dr. Ubach, for your practice. Put them out in the community and around to provide to parents as well. So do you guys have any questions?
If they don't meet criteria for an IEP, I know that's not the end of it, is it
504.
So the team can decide that, hey, they have a presence of a disability, it does impact them, but they don't need specially designed instruction, they may just need accommodations. And if so, the eligibility team would refer them to a 504 eligibility.
Okay.
We also have medical 504 eligibility, so sometimes you can just go straight to 504 eligibility and not have to go through IDEA.
Give them some examples of what a medical 504 might be
Yeah,
for.
A medical 504 might be for a student who has diabetes that may be missing a lot of class, needs some accommodations because the diabetes and going to the clinic and getting that sugar regulated. And when their sugar's not right, it's hard to learn in the classroom, as you know. We have students that have seizures that may have a 504 plan. They may have to miss school more often than others, and how are we going to support them and help them in that work when they are there and making sure they're moving up there. We have 504s for students with ADHD that just may need accommodations in the classroom as well. So they're not really medical, but they don't really need specially designed instruction, but they do need accommodations to be successful.
Yeah, understood. Good, thank you.
And I think that one of the things that we kind of deal with a lot is the definitions. You have to have an educational impact from your disability. And sometimes what we find is that we will get information that a child has a disability or some kind of not a disability, but an education, a medical, but it's not really affecting them educationally. They're getting A's and B's, they're doing fine in class. And so that sometimes can be confusing, I think, for parents and even staff sometimes, if we're getting information from a doctor or, a nurse practitioner or someone saying this anxiety is really problematic, but we're not seeing it in school, so we kind of have to make those distinctions. So doesn't mean it won't affect them at some point, but sometimes, like, we might have an elementary student who has anxiety, but parents see it more at home. It might hit them in middle school, and that's when we would have to go back and look. And so,
So I have a couple of questions. First of all, I had a text from one of the, she's a friend of mine, but she also works, substitute teaches and stuff in Bedford County. And she noticed that a while ago, it used to be where the core classes for children who had severe learning disabilities or special needs were they had their own core classes, like they had specialized core classes for them to be at their pace. But she's noticed that there's been a lot of kids who are in core classes that should be in there and they're not keeping up and they're having trouble. And she wondered what changed or what happened or what would that be? Why would that happen?
So it's all individualized to the child. So it would depend on where the student is in that. But we develop those IEPs to meet their needs. So there may be students. We have 2 tracks that VDOE has set out under our regs, and that is a VAP, which is the Virginia Alternative Assessment Program, where the program is modified. And then we have the SOL track. So our students have to be in one of those tracks. Some of our students that have disabilities do not qualify for that modified curriculum, because that modified curriculum is really for 1% of our students. Matter of fact, they don't like for you to go over that 1% cap. And it's for students who have severe needs. And it may be with their communication, their learning, all of those pieces that they cannot learn in the regular classroom. If you have students that are having more trouble staying up, say they have a reading disability and they're not on grade level with their peers, what we're doing through IEPs is they are still provided that instruction, because that tier 1 instruction all students need to learn, but they may be being pulled out at another time to do special education reading or do more specialized to meet their skills and their needs where they are. So it really would just depend on the child. We have many students who are in the adaptive curriculum that are included in gen ed classes. Parents want their children to be included, and they want them to be in. Sometimes we modify the work if they're in those classrooms as well. So it just depends on what the student needs and what the IEP team decides is appropriate for them.
Well, her observation as she worked with this child was that the child was very frustrated because they weren't keeping up. And it was also a distraction to the other class, other kids in the class. So do you do a reevaluation when you start seeing, okay, they're getting an F in all of their, core classes, they're not keeping up, there's a problem here. At what point do you reevaluate what their needs are.
If kids are not passing classes and they have a disability, IEP team meetings should be occurring and they should be talking about where their student is, and that can happen at any time throughout the school year. So just because IEP meetings are annually, you can have an addendum or you can have an IEP meeting anytime there's concerns. Reevals are every 3 years, but we can always, if there's a concern and we feel like, something else is going on here, we can do a reevaluation eligibility meeting at any time as well.
And I would liken it a little bit to, a student who is a slow learner doesn't qualify for special education because their ability and they're doing what they're at the same level as their ability, but they're really gonna struggle in school. But that's not gonna qualify them for an IEP. So I think in every class, you're going to have students who may be frustrated with a topic or frustrated but may not qualify for an IEP. Or, we have students with IEPs who have all the accommodations that they need, but they're still not putting their effort in, just like any other student in the classroom. So sometimes I think in her situation, she's a substitute seeing that student maybe once or twice, rather than the whole team coming together to evaluate. And typically when a student has an F in a class, for 9 weeks, we have an IEP meeting to discuss what's going on, why did the student fail this class, is it student effort, is it they need some different accommodations, they need some different instruction. So I think we always keep that in mind.
And that child may have another class at some point, like a resource class or something that they're going in, that we're reteaching the information and supporting them to help them learn it. They may not see that there in that classroom.
I would assume too that any person involved, the parent or your team or anybody that is seeing a kid falling behind could call for a reeval.
Yep, yes, absolutely.
Especially parents,
Mm-hmm.
If they're seeing stuff that they don't like, that they can say, hey, let's take a closer look.
Look at what's going on here,
So
yes.
sorry, one more question. You mentioned that if the parents are against it, that all bets are off, you can't do anything.
Virginia is a consent state, they must
And
consent.
I totally agree with parental assessments of that, but I'm also concerned about these kids. Like at EC class, I had a student who was in my Spanish 3 class, and they were a senior, and they couldn't read English. And I did not realize that until I asked him to read something in English, and he couldn't read it. Spanish is actually easier because you follow it phonetically. Everything is exactly as it's written. You just need to know a few rules, not dozens and dozens of them. But he couldn't read, and I took him aside afterwards privately, and I'm like, "What's going on? I noticed you couldn't read English." And he said, "Yeah, I've got a learning disability. My dad wouldn't let me do an IEP, do anything like that." Do we have any way to encourage maybe some tutoring or some little extra stuff without labeling them with an IEP or going through that whole thing for the sake of, the kid, he's graduating high school, can't read English.
And what are the parents afraid of too? If the kids go through an IEP, does that label them as subpar for the rest of their lives, or whatever
Yeah,
their imagination is?
So
Well, there's
how can we help those
Yeah.
kids? Because I just felt bad for him. Here he wants to go to college. He's a great football player. He wanted to go to college. I'm like, you're gonna really struggle in college. I don't know how in the world he's gonna get through it.
There is a lot of research that says once you're given a disability label, that the world sees you differently.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what parents are afraid of. They want the support, and I do think that teachers are really good at trying to give as much support as possible. In that situation, if a student didn't have an IEP but was struggling, we would be doing reading remediation. We would be doing, there are venues and ways for kids to get their diploma. Maybe if they don't pass the reading SOL, they can do a work keys assessment, which is showing that they at least have the reading skills to hold a job at a certain level. So I think we would offer them as much as we could, but if a parent won't let us test, I think we have a really good team of people who try to talk parents through those concerns and those fears. And I do think,
I mean, this was not in Bedford County.
yeah,
I
and
just wanted-
I think we try really, really hard to help those kids feel accepted, and that's why I think we're seeing more of them in the gen ed classroom, because that is their least restrictive environment. They need to be exposed to what everyone's being exposed to, and trying to still have high expectations. And
I would say it's very, very seldom that we have a parent that is in agreement of, you know, we want our child to have help. You know, we know they're struggling, we know that they're behind, and we want, so it's very, very seldom I've ever had that situation happen. And I think we also, I mean, in our classrooms, we're doing that tier one and we differentiate, and we have, for VLA, we have the reading specialist. So even students that are receiving services through the reading specialist doesn't mean they have a disability. It just means that they're about a little bit behind or whatever in reading and whatever that does. So we're always providing interventions. Teachers, we always talk about good strategies for teachers and what to use for all students to learn, and interventions for them. So I think Bedford County does a really good job of that, just in their classroom themselves. And then,
That's good.
yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that we're not losing some of those kids that, and he was a minority, he was, and I think there was this, well, it's, you know, that pride of you're just picking on my child or whatever. And, you know, that pride of there's nothing wrong with my child. And it was definitely detrimental to this poor kid. I loved him, he was wonderful, wonderful kid, very well behaved, very, you know, respectful, good kid, really trying. But, you know, unfortunately, here he was a senior and he couldn't read English. So, yeah, I don't wanna see that in Bedford County. If we can avoid graduating kids without being able to read, which has been unfortunately the norm, in the US, so,
Something else that's new the last couple of years with the Literacy Act is for a student that's considered high risk with the VALS test. And this is K-8, we're required to create a student reading plan, which is separate from an IEP. So that's disabled, non-disabled.
Okay, good, yeah.
And that means they get 2.5 extra hours of instruction each week. And so that is supposed to kind of prevent those situations, to get kids early.
when did that come in?
The Literacy Act, we fully implemented it with the VALS last year, and then this year we've added middle school. This is the first year with, I'm sorry, grades 4 through 8, so it's.
Yeah, this gentleman was, he graduated back 2021 or 22, so.
Yeah, that's good, and that will help to ameliorate some of the labeling and whatnot.
right,
Very good.
Great,
good question.
thank you.
Thank you.
I did have one more question about, I don't know, I'm sure you guys probably saw the press conference about what's been causing the autism.
Yes.
And that was Tylenol and, of course, the mercury in our vaccines. I don't think everybody watched that. I wondered if we can make sure that information gets out to our parents immediately.
Well, guess what? It's only gonna affect pregnant women for the most part. It is being revamped in the CDC vaccination guidelines so that they won't even be offering MMRs and varicella to kids under 4. And the black box labels will come out of the woodwork for acetaminophen and Tylenol. I think you're gonna see it like you see on alcohol products and tobacco products for at risk during pregnancy. All that's gonna come rushing at us like a
Yeah, good, I just wanna make
like
sure
a
that
waterfall.
that our parents are well aware to protect the next generation of kids. And they also
Yeah,
had some
hopefully
kind of,
decrease the IEPs that are gonna be in public schools.
yes, and they actually also had some kind of remedy for autism, or I don't know if it completely remediates it, but it helps. There's
Yeah, I haven't seen
there's a
all
product
of their,
that they have developed to, I guess the thing that's causing the brain issues, have something that kind of helps remediate
It's
that.
part of a cancer treatment.
Is it part of the?
I think it was a cancer treatment. protocol.
Well, and I'm sure because of the mercury, heavy metal details will help as well. So anyway, I just wanna make sure that our parents are aware of the dangers as well as the possible cures, hopefully, that'll be coming out. And that it'd be, that we would amplify that to our students. So there's no plan right now to say anything?
We have not talked about it. I would say that I would be a little leery. We're not medical professionals, and we would really rely on pediatricians to be giving parents that information. And I don't know that we know enough about it. If it comes through DOE, through our health services department, then we would offer whatever they guided us to offer. But just on our own, we probably wouldn't do that without having the medical expertise behind it to give us, what should we
The way
be
to
saying?
do it.
Yeah.
We really stay with the educational piece of it,
Yeah.
the medical piece is, we leave that to the experts that are in the medical field. And I can tell you for being in special education for many, 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 many years, there's been many studies that have come and gone, and I'm sure Dr. Hubach knows that as well. So it'll be interesting to see how this one continues to evolve and what happens in that prevention piece and what that looks like. So definitely look toward the medical providers to give us that information.
We'll see within a year.
Yeah, I heard this morning on the radio that Tylenol is probably ramping up their lawsuit because they think there's nothing wrong with their product. So you gotta sort through that first, and before you start making.
Tylenol.
Right.
If you got a headache, put an ice pack on it and,
I mean, how many of us have done that with our children?
Oh,
No, Tylenol and
oh,
ibuprofen.
what can I take for pain?
Yep.
This baby's 10 pounds and I've got sciatica. What can I take?
Yeah.
Take Tylenol.
Yeah, that's what they gave us. Well, thank you. Very good job.
Mr. Sexton,
Yes, so
what you
today
got?
I'm bringing you the product that we use at 3 high schools called Vivi. This started about 3 years ago, looking at products and how we can kind of modernize the classroom and get rid of the projectors that we've been using for many, many years. Projectors are great. I'm not gonna say that they're not, but there's a lot of maintenance and a lot of cost that goes into maintaining those, and one is bulb expenses. And we have replaced thousands of bulbs over the years, and bulbs are getting more and more expensive. So I wanted to look at a way to.
But they last longer, right?
Yeah, not at
No.
all. Especially, sometimes they're accidentally left on overnight and things like that, which doesn't help bulb life. So I wanted to look at a way, how can we cut down on that expense and, kind of modernize the classroom as well, get rid of the old pull-down screens. And obviously, we can't afford an interactive panel in every classroom. That would be ideal, but what we realized is that, and after doing some research and communicating with teachers, is that not all grade levels use interactive capability. They just need some kind of a display. So we started at Liberty High School because one, their projectors, due to the sealant material at Liberty and Stanton River, those projectors, specifically at Liberty, were never mounted because we did a trial and we mounted them at Stanton River High School and it didn't work out real well. The HVAC would shake the ceilings, and so the image was always vibrating. I mean, it was very difficult to get a sturdy mount on those ceilings. So Liberty was never done. So that was the first one I wanted to get the projectors off the carts and extension cords and stuff running through the rooms. So we put TVs in, and a few classrooms did get some interactive panels. They already had a few interactive panels in some locations, but for the most part, they got TVs. But the big issue is, how do we stream to them? How do we cut the cord and enable teachers to, if they don't want their desk on this wall this year, they can move it across the classroom without us having to run cable. Plus, again, with no drop ceiling, it's very difficult to cable anything in those buildings specifically. So we started looking for wireless streaming solutions, and obviously in an environment like this, you cannot use consumer grade products. People are like, well, you can go to Walmart and buy a Roku. you can't. While that works fine at home, in an enterprise environment like this, you can't do that. So when we were looking, Google had just come out with a device basically using their Chromecast platform, which is a consumer grade product, but they put a spin on it for education. It was called Chromecast Moderator. So that's the direction we went in, and they were working fairly well. They were not robust. Like, there's a lot of things you can't do with them, but for a simple casting my screen from here to the TV, it worked fairly well. Then Google pulled the plug on that. So it was kind of back to the drawing board. I'm not sure why. I even spoke to them, never could get an answer as to why they're really pulling the plug on Google Chromecast for education. I don't know if it was they just weren't making money. Not sure what it was. So it was kind of back to the drawing board, and that's kind of where Vivi comes in. Vivi is it's so much more than just a streaming device. It is basically designed specifically for education. It was not designed for corporate world or the conference rooms like many of the other products are. This is specifically designed for education. And I did give you a little handout there, and I'm actually going to show you a demonstration as well. But again, like I said, it is wireless screen monitoring dedicated to the education market. It allows teachers to kind of flow, because all teachers have laptops now, so they can kind of flow around the room if they need to. It offers digital signage, which was a big request that we've been getting from schools. How can we cast announcements throughout the day without disrupting? So the way that Vivi does it, and I'll show you in just a few minutes, is that we can actually put digital signage up, and the schools control that through Google Slides. They can put up-to-date content on there, and when the teacher isn't using it, the TV can be on in the classroom, and it will just scroll those announcements. So, if the student needs to look, they can read it right in class. Some of the schools, we have put TVs in the hallways to scroll announcements. Vivi also has little plugins that you can add to it. At most of the schools, we do weather. So after the scrolling, it will pop up and give the time and the weather forecast, and then we'll go back to the digital signage. One piece that I'm very excited about is the emergency alerts that we'll be able to implement. We haven't done that yet. We're trying to work out the bugs and everything on the initial rollout, and then we're going to add the emergency alert as well. And what that will do is talk to our Raptor products, which also we have Alertus too, which is part of that mix. They all talk to each other. And this will get the emergency alert information, and it will prioritize that. So even if a teacher is connected with their screen, with their laptop, and an emergency alert comes through, it takes over. If the TV isn't turned on and it's a newer TV, it will actually turn the TV on before it makes the announcement. So again, I'm excited to get that implementation started. Just one more addition to add to our emergency platform that we have. So I'm really looking forward to that. The other big piece to this is announcements. Besides the digital signage piece, we're talking about like live announcements, because traditionally schools get on the intercom, they make announcements, which in a lot of the cases they still do. But back in the day when we had cable distribution systems in schools like Channel 1 News, you may be familiar with Channel 1. It was in a lot of public schools. It was in Bedford schools.
Hey, I remember
I-
a teacher doing it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember it when I was in school, we had
Yeah, but
Channel
you
1.
were watching it. I was turning it on.
I was watching it. But and what they did, they actually come into schools that didn't have cable distribution, like coax throughout the building, and they put TVs in every classroom. As long as you watched a percentage, I think like 90% of their news, which most of it was for advertising, to be honest with you. But once they went out, no one was maintaining those cable distribution systems. Of course, when we built Liberty Middle School, when we remodeled Forest Middle School, there was no provisions for cable distribution, so they were all pulled out. Everything was gone. So it's kind of like, how do we do live announcements again? Because some of the schools were, even years ago, they had a camcorder and they were just broadcasting it through the old television sets. So that kind of went away, and we're like, okay, we've got to come up with something else. Vivi allows that. So Vivi, in fact, I just met with Stanton River High School today. We kind of went over a few equipment pieces that they need to make it happen, but they want to go to like podcast type situation for their announcements. And it will be broadcast live on all their TVs. I know Jefferson Forest High School's been interested in it as well. So that's something that's also, we don't have any schools participating in it as of yet, but that's going to be rolling out soon, which will be great.
Is there a budget for that? I mean,
For the
Vivi?
So the way that the TV, the whole TV purchase, Vivi purchase and all that, the way that I'm doing it is not every year, because these are products, these are items that are not in any sort of a replacement cycle. Projectors are not part of a replacement cycle. I mean, we still have a lot of IT equipment that is not. Our main, we replace Chromebooks routinely as needed. We replace teacher computers, staff computers, but there's some items that we just replace when we can. So there's some years that if I don't have to replace as many staff computers, I use that money and I spend it on projects like this. And I kind of have it to where I'm going to eventually be able to get this equipment on a replacement cycle of sorts by knowing what years I'm buying more teacher laptops. And then maybe next year we're not buying nearly as many because none of them are due for replacement, so we can spend some of that money. And that's how I'm doing this. Able to do classroom TVs, and eventually I'm gonna roll this down to elementary, and we're gonna start, giving those classrooms, modernizing them with the same sort of setup. So it's not really budgeted per se, it's just as I have money left over after replacing what we need to replace as far as the teacher computers, then I spend it on that. So, but what we've learned, in looking at these products, many of them also don't have any way to manage them. And that's where Vivi actually really stands out too, because we can go in, we can manage them from a central console, we can see which ones are maybe need updates, we can monitor if they're online or if they dropped offline, we can kind of address those issues before even, the teacher has to put in a help ticket. So that's what makes this a whole lot better. Plus, we have the central capability. If we needed to send out, going on the assumption that every school will eventually have Vivi, Mr. DePere could send out an announcement, say, hey, I'm going to send this announcement out, and actually go live on every TV that has a Vivi connected to it in every school. So the capabilities are there.
Scary.
Yeah. And so the capabilities are there, and they keep adding products. They take teacher input, they take IT input for added features, and they roll them out very often. And there's some that are in the works now that I think teachers are going to get excited about, like customizing their dashboard so when the TV's on, maybe they can set their own wallpaper and things like that.
Quick question, is Vivi a product or is it a subscription or
Well,
both?
it's both. And that's the other piece, is that I wanted to try to find a product that didn't have a subscription.
No exists.
It pretty much doesn't exist anymore. There used to be, you used to be able to buy maybe a license, and it was basically it was the life of the device. Those days are long gone, and it's sad because it's caused the price of software to skyrocket because of the subscription based.
Yeah.
But basically the way that this works is you buy the product, and really you don't even buy the actual hardware. They just kind of give you that.
It's all on the cloud
It's all,
somewhere.
you buy the subscription. Yeah. But it is a device. It's kind of like I have there in the handout. It's just a little box like this that
That's tiny.
Just
has
a router.
Ethernet.
It's a
Yeah,
router.
that's essentially what it looks like. It has several expansion ports on it for, I think, things in the future. It's got several USB. The other positive thing about this device is that it can be hardwired, like it can be plugged in physically to the network and not have to rely on our wireless infrastructure, which is, of course, when you have every student on a Chromebook, it's overwhelmed at times. So we wanted to get this off of that. So we can plug it in the classroom behind the TV, and you don't have to worry about the wireless connection. But I did give a few screenshots here just to kind of show you, but what I really wanted to do was to kind of show you firsthand. So right when I switch over to this is Liberty High School's current slides that are going through the school now. And again, there's someone at the school that maintains these, that updates the content that's on there. All three high schools are really taking advantage of that, updating their slides. I know JF has really put a lot of slides and graphics and things on theirs. Stanton River the same way. But this kind of scrolls when the teacher isn't connected. This is what we'll be scrolling in the classrooms, in commons areas if there's a TV. We just kind of have this going 24/7 as long as the TV is on. Now, I will say that there is a schedule set, and at the end of the school day, maybe a little bit later, these are set to actually turn the TVs off. So we don't have TVs being left on overnight. In most modern TVs, it can control through the HDMI port and shut them down. On that same note, if the TV isn't on and the announcement schedule starts, it will turn the TV on for that announcement as well. So again, this is kind of what they see, but if I were to,
So this school, you've actually got the Vivi in that, that's, or is that what they have currently?
our three high schools, we have Vivi.
Oh, you do?
Yes, we purchased it, that rolled out at the beginning of this school year. Because we had to come up with a solution. Jefferson Forest, they got new TVs as well because they were the last high school. So we did TVs and then we did Vivi in all three schools because of the Chromecast moderator going away. They were no longer gonna be supporting that. They were kind of like, if it works, but the minute, we were expecting an update to come down that just pretty much wiped that out. And that's just a risk because that would leave teachers with nothing to display to. And, as we're persuading them to only use Chromebooks when necessary and things like that, we have to give them the ability to cast content up front if we don't want the students on Chromebooks all the time. Again, this will scroll if.
And I don't know if this is what you're asking, but he's actually pulled up the Vivi that's now scrolling at Liberty
Yeah, this-
High School.
this is
So
my
that's what
demo
kids are
and-
seeing actually at Liberty High School right now.
And I just put the Liberty High School signage schedule on my demo unit.
You
Now,
can,
could-
from there, you can just go to a different high school?
I would have to set it up at the console.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I could make this box basically a part of any school's signage.
So if I'm a parent of a Liberty High School student, can I go on the Bedford County website and look at the announcements that are scrolling?
That's up to the school. Some schools may that I don't know.
I'd love that if I was a parent,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? Number one, I
Those
wanna
kids are
know what
different.
I wanna know what you're exposed to. And number two, my kid's brain dead when it comes to telling me about announcements and what's going on at school and.
That's true. Yes, I've experienced that many times with mine. Like you asked, what did you do at school today? I don't know.
Had lunch.
Yeah,
When's this activity happening? I don't know.
yeah, I don't know.
How difficult would that be to make that
As a
accessible?
school- So each school has their own webmaster, and so they would basically just need to link the slides. Do that if that's something that they choose to do. That is not something I'm really a part of. But they just share with me, they create the slides, they share them with me, and I put them in the digital signage for this product. But it's a Google slide.
It would be a piece of cake to do.
It's a Google
They may
slide.
be doing it, I don't know.
Oh, so you
Might be
use.
a good idea to.
If they're not, I
Yeah.
think that it would be a
Definitely something they could
reasonable
consider.
ask from the board to say, hey, would you guys?
So from the dashboard, like I will choose this one and then click join room, and then you'll see a code pops up. And this is the important piece because the code prevents just anyone from basically, hijacking a teacher's display, which will happen with some of these consumer grade products like a Fire Stick or a Roku. They're easily hijacked because they're meant to be used in your home, not in a classroom setting. So you don't have, 70 people trying to connect to the display, and then you accidentally take over someone else's. And back in the day, before they really were making any device for education like this, we tried some Chromecast consumer products, and that happened. A few people's displays got hijacked, and it was we knew then that was not going to work. But they used now they lock them down with security, so you can't just hijack a display. So 569. So so on your handout, you'll kind of see, it's on the second or the third page at the bottom where it says the dashboard displays tools. There are multiple tools there like share screen, share window, share camera, and that works very well we have teachers using that with their document cameras, so they don't have to tie up their computer, and they don't really have to tie up or have the document camera physically connected to the TV. They can just share their camera, and it uses the software on the computer, but it's not actually displayed on the computer. It goes directly to the Vivi, which works well for the science classes and other subjects where they love their document cameras. The other good thing about this is that it can play content directly, which is what I'm going to kind of do now. I have some examples.
So, sorry, just so I'm clear, you have Vivi in all three of the high schools. Is it just, does every teacher have access to it already?
They do.
Every teacher, okay.
Yes. Every classroom, or every instructional space, conference rooms, we rolled it out to the 3 high schools, and so far it's been working great. We're able to accomplish a lot of things that we were not able to do, and one, like I said, is these live announcements that the schools are actually starting to get excited about bringing back, and I'm excited for that as well, because I feel like they can actually incorporate that into, like, some of them were doing classes like multimedia classes or yearbook, and they had them doing announcements, the morning announcements, but that kind of faded away because of the lack of just infrastructure to do it in modern schools, and with Channel 1 going away,
So that's a visual as well as audio.
Right.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's students like actually sitting live on a camera doing podcasts or live announcements like they're at a news, they're a news reporter or something like that. So let's see if I can.
I have a couple of questions when you're finished.
Okay.
My son used to do announcements at EC Glass, and he dressed up as Ron Burgundy. Got a mustache and and the kids were like, "Oh, it's Simeon again," because he was always cracking jokes until he made fun of the food cafeteria, and then they said, "Nope, no more jokes." So he was bummed, but they would always look forward to him being on announcements because he was always doing some kind of funny thing.
All right. My playlist doesn't seem to be working, but I will do, let's see, share screen. Okay, so this is actually doing, and you can also do split screen. As you see, like, that's on my computer, but I can drag over so it can be like a second monitor for teachers. So they can be working on this one, they could have their email open, but have something displayed on the second screen, which a lot of teachers love. That way they don't have to type their computer. But right here, I did want to show you this play content. This is something I was trying to demonstrate. It's not working correctly in this, for some reason, I don't know why. I probably need to restart my computer. But play content is important as well because teachers like to, obviously they use video, and a lot of instruction. And this enables them to take the link, so say they find something on YouTube or another video platform, if it's shared publicly, they can take the URL and paste it into Play Content, and it will go directly to the Vivi, and again, it doesn't tie up their laptop at all. They don't have to, it doesn't take over the screen. They can create a playlist. I created like a playlist with some math content, some engineering stuff, and it will go through those videos one by one, or you can play just one video out of your playlist, but it enables teachers to build that playlist, and if they can go through, select the video they want to play and just highlight play, and it sends it directly to the screen, and their computer's still usable for whatever else that they may be doing while the students are watching that. There is a new feature that just rolled out in August, of course, so I haven't even had a chance to test it yet. But it enables teachers to, anything that's being casted to the display, it enables them to also send it down to the student devices. So if you have students in the back of the class, maybe they can't see well, or something of that nature, they can then display it on the Chromebook, exactly what's on the screen. But that is a new feature that, again, I have not had a chance to really test. My priority now is basically to get the emergency management stuff going, and then we can kind of start testing that feature too to see if it's something that that would be beneficial for us. But yeah, like I said, they're always adding features and different things to this product. So so far so good. So far we really like it, and it's also the other piece of this. Our middle schools, we have interactive panels in most of the classrooms in middle school, and they're aging. Like Liberty Middle's Clear Touch. This model is actually one of them that's getting some age on it. Clear Touch is they eventually stop sending out software updates to these, and the app that's used to connect to these old Clear Touches, it updates, but the version of software on here doesn't. So then you have a mismatch, and then it eventually, and it's planned obsolescence. That's what it is. You know, they want to push you to a newer hardware. But what Vivi can do is actually breathe some life back into these, because some of those connections that's on the back, you can use those as touch. So then I can share my screen like this and enable touch and still use the interactive portion of this board without having to use the software that came with it.
Wow.
Yeah. So we've been able to do that. We've tested that in several locations, and it works well, which pretty much brings back the use of these. You know, if the screen is not dead,
Yeah.
but it's just the software, well then that's kind of the
Circumvents-
solution to that.
Circumvents their planned obsolescence.
It does. It absolutely does.
And
Yep.
let's just hope Vivi doesn't decide to not work anymore like Chrome did.
Yeah, I know. That was very disappointing. David can attest to this. My feelings were hurt big time when that's because it was they could have done well with that, and I still don't know why Google pulled the plug, but I have a feeling it was about money.
So you said that this is specifically for education as opposed to corporate. How is it different?
So for example, we use another product that was kind of the middleman for a while before the Chromecast came out. It's called Airtame, and Airtame is a very good product. It's a streaming product, kind of the same way that's designed for enterprise networks, but it is not designed specifically for education. So you don't get like the emergency management, the emergency notifications. You don't get the whiteboarding, all the whiteboarding features that you do here. You know, there's even some features like the timer. If a teacher wants to have the students do a project and sets a timer, you can do that with this. Those are just some things that corporate,
Yes.
streaming devices
Not
that
as
are
likely.
they don't have all those other features built in. You can, purchase separate apps that will do that you can build into those, but Vivi, it's part of it, and that's what I like so much about them, because they only focus on education. And I love the where you can give them feedback, and they do take it seriously, and you can there's all kinds of features that teachers and IT staff have submitted to them, and you can vote. This is important to me, and you can vote, and the higher that it gets voted, it goes into actual testing, and They've rolled out several like that.
And who puts it out?
It's, the company is Vivi.
Is it national?
It is. Yes.
So I had a couple of questions for you
Okay.
regarding the financing and things in terms of proposed expansion. Where are you headed?
So,
Right now, it sounds like all three high schools have all the equipment that they need and you're just on an annual subscription with Vivi.
right. When I purchased Vivi this last time, I was able to do a 5-year. And of course, the longer you purchase the subscription, the cheaper you can get it. Plus, because of our Chromecast snafu, they gave several of the units for free. Because they knew, I was like, well, while Chromecast is not very expensive, it's still an investment that we invested in. So I wanted to make sure that we saw some sort of a return on that. And in my negotiations with them, I'm like, we're going to have to do something. You're going to have to show that because we haven't had these other devices all that long. And they did. They pretty much bought them, but they didn't require us to send them back. That's kind of how they did it. They just gave
Good
me
finagling.
yeah. Oh, trust me, I negotiate.
Your last name's not Hagler?
That I negotiate with these
Nobody
people because
getting
I'm like, I know you can do better. But
Good for you.
but anyway, my plan is because middle schools, of course, when Liberty was built, Liberty Middle, we went with this device. Well, then when Forest Middle School was added on to and kind of remodeled, we purchased clear touch panels for them during the construction. Stanton River, they used a lot of PTA funds and some other things, and then IT also pitched in to make sure. So that way we could have consistency in all three middle schools. So middle schools are not so much my focus now. It's looking at some of our elementary schools that have, aging projectors. Some of the elementary schools have really high ceilings, and so the down rod that holds the projector is less than desirable in that location. So sometimes you still get some of that vibration from anything in the building like HVAC systems. And I want to try to do something to modernize those classrooms. So elementary will be my focus as funding allows. Like I said, I just usually look at what's left end of the year. If I don't have a big year with expense on staff computers, I'm able to do more with this sort of thing. But, and this is without asking for an increase or anything like that. We're just trying to, these items that don't have a replacement cycle, we're just trying to build that in.
It sounds like financial gymnastics, not budgeting.
Yeah, it kind of is, but I feel like that we're able to, once I sit down and looked at the budget and determine what it is, I'm still trying to gain that year after year to determine, okay, this year I'm going to replace this number of computers. We're still trying to work that out, but so far, like I said, the last 3 years, I figured it out and have been able to do the 3 high schools. So year 1, 2, and 3. So they're all 3 done, and I feel like I can kind of get on that same routine with the elementary schools.
Okay. Is that all on you, or is that something in conjunction with Mr. Hagler and with your team?
It's kind of with me. Of course, Mr. Hagler will help me in any way possible, and if there's any funding to help pitch in for this,
To me, it sounds like, a big deal, and yet, on the other hand, it seems a little sketch in terms of, we'll find it somewhere. I just want to make sure that the kids are getting what they need to meet the needs that are at hand and to keep up with current technology.
And again, we always have a display device in the classroom. If it's a projector, they work, but it's just something that I want. My goal is to try to get away from those just because of the increasing bulb cost, and then just constantly having to clean the fans out of dust, and they have filters in them. It's just a lot. And
they're obsolete.
They are. And it's time that we move forward. But again, I don't want anything else to suffer. I don't want to not replace teacher devices or things like that. So that's why I'm kind of using the money from the years where we're not replacing quite as many devices.
I'm gonna do a little bit of a shout out to Mr. Sexton and his team. They are constantly looking at negotiations and deals. We changed cell phones and saved thousands of dollars. I mean, they're constantly doing that, finding overages that people are charging that they're hoping we won't catch, things like that. So I think part of it is they do such a good job managing their budget and trying to find where they can cut and better products that are not as expensive. So they do a great job with that.
So we leave him to do what he's doing
We need
well.
him to negotiate, yeah.
Yeah, we definitely try. I do not take the first, like, when someone gives an offer, I'm like,
No.
I go back and sometimes probably I end up making some enemies in some places, but I'm like, I think we could do this a whole lot cheaper. That's what we do.
Well, thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
I mean, as a teacher, that would be great. I always had to type my computer
Yeah.
and plug it in to.
And that's, we kept getting that complaint, I always have to tie the computer up and while you can still share your screen, obviously, if you can put videos and other content on without tying up the teacher computer, it's so much better.
I'm ready for a science lesson.
Yeah.
Just really quick, I'll set it up for us. So one of the things we wanted to show you is just some of the ways we're spending our Title I money. And I know there's been some discussions, kind of just with questions about that. And, to receive Title I money, the school has to have a certain percentage of free and reduced lunch or kids in poverty. And so there's a lot of impacts that we could spend, hours and hours discussing how that impacts student learning. But one of the things that we've noticed is with the new science standards especially is the idea of there should be scientific investigation. They should be looking at phenomenon and doing hands-on learning. And some of the concepts they learn are a bit abstract. And so sometimes these kids come to us not prepared to think that way. And so for our Title I schools, this is just one example of something we've used to try to promote that. So Ms. Kapler is our supervisor of science and computer science. So you are not going to be the students. So she's going to teach you a lesson on watersheds and just demonstrate how this works. So turn it over to her.
there?
Yes, so if you don't mind to come over this way, that'd be great. I'm gonna give you a little handout just so that you can see how this can be used at different grade levels. So like Dr. Trosper said, this watershed kit, EnviroScape model, it actually comes in a rolling suitcase. And one was purchased for each of our Title I elementary schools. And you can see that it spans from second grade content, and then you can adapt the lesson and use the same model and just teach it in a different way up through sixth grade. And then I do have this actually is the one additional kit that I have that teachers can borrow if they are not a Title I school or a middle school. So our sixth grade teachers can also use the one kit that I have that I got with
There's a cow in the
Bedford.
water.
I know, we need to Bedford Area Education Grant is how I got this other. So
That's a pollution.
watersheds are a really abstract thing that is hard for kids to understand. So I'm gonna kind of show you a brief version of the fourth grade lesson that we would do. And I actually have offered for teachers to have me come in and co-teach with them or model. So I taught this last year at the end of the year in a fifth grade classroom because it's a fourth grade standard that they needed to review for the fifth grade SOL. So it's just a really good hands-on way to reiterate and show them what a watershed actually is. So these are a few slides that I have that I share with teachers so that they pretty much can just plug and play and use the question stems that are on here to go along with it. So this is an actual watershed, which is the area of land that all of the water drains into.
Looking at that question, I'm already thinking all of the different answers you might have.
Yes, exactly. So you can see that when I'm actually doing this with students, it takes a little bit of a long time to question them and pull all those pieces out. But so I first have them think about all the different types of bodies of water that they know, and then they can identify some of them on this watershed example. And then thinking about what happens to a river when it rains. So you can see our two rivers here, and ultimately they flow into this larger body of water. So that's just kind of the primer to get them thinking. So now we're gonna look at our actual model, and I want you to identify some of the like areas that you notice. What are some things that you notice that might be similar to things that we see around in Bedford County? So I noticed a farm. Farmland. Anything else? Some mountains, yeah. Anything else?
Industry.
Industry, yep. Here's a factory.
A factory.
This is more like a neighborhood, and then some construction going on, which we see a lot
That's New
in
London
different
right
areas.
there.
Yep,
Yeah,
here's
really?
New London right here. Exactly.
This is south side.
Yeah, so just relating it to where they are, and then thinking about like mountains and what happens when it rains on a mountain, just kind of starting to think through that. So thinking about our watershed, we have some pollution that happens throughout every watershed in the nation, but specifically around here, what are some pollutants that you know of that can happen from these specific areas and then also get into our water eventually? Chemicals.
Fertilizer.
Okay, wait. Chemicals, all right, so here's some fertilizer. So where would we see fertilizer?
On the farm.
Probably on the farm. Okay, we'll probably see it over here in these fields. We might see it in the housing, trying to get plants to grow in our yards.
And grasses to be green.
Yes, okay.
Okay, true green.
For 2 months.
Okay, so fertilizer, what is another pollutant that you might see?
Chemicals.
Chemicals, pesticides, right? We had a whole discussion about what pesticides are, and surprisingly, elementary students know a lot more than I expected them to know. I don't know if my own kids would be able to talk about what pesticides are, but so we would see pesticides in our neighborhoods and trying to keep insects off of our plants that we're trying to grow.
People hate stink bugs.
Yes, exactly. Trying to get rid of those lantern flies. Okay, what are some other pollutants that you might find like from our animal friends?
It's fertilizer though.
Organic.
Well,
Organic fertilizer.
Yes. Manure,
Manure.
right? Okay, so our
So
cows,
funny.
especially if they get into our streams, like
Yeah.
there's nothing keeping these cows out of our streams, right? And then maybe if people don't pick up after their dogs in the neighborhood, side of the road, Okay, so that symbolizes manure that we might see. Do you know what factory waste is called? Sludge. Okay, here you go.
Chocolate syrup.
Oh, wow.
Where would we find sludge? Go ahead and pour it. Okay, that is very lovely looking.
Smelling good.
It does smell good.
Smells better than sludge would.
Exactly. Let me see what other, okay, so one of the big pollutants in the James River that, especially with all of this brown area that we would see is sediments, which is just loose
Clay,
dirt
yeah.
and soil that then gets into our water. So my shakers are a little bit, yes. Woo-hoo.
See that?
So
Yeah,
anywhere that we
construction
see
zone,
our open dirt areas, we're gonna put some of the sediments, because those make our water cloudy and then animals are not able to live in there. Okay, so again, that would be a much longer process. Oh, we forgot about one thing. What about litter? Like from humans
Garbage.
littering things on the side of the road?
We don't do that because it's illegal.
Well, exactly, but sadly, it still happens.
Yeah.
Cigarettes.
Just flies off of those
Yeah.
trucks in Huddleston.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
All the plastics, the microplastics.
Yes.
So what do we think will happen if it were to rain and we have all of these pollutants in different areas? What do we think would happen? sources of
The
pollution.
water would take it down to the river.
Okay, so
Through
it
the
goes
river
into
to
the
the
river,
lake.
and the whole idea that fourth graders are
Into the
supposed to
river.
understand is we all live downstream
Right
from
to Grandma's
something,
house
but like,
that you
if you
drink.
have no frame of reference, it's super abstract for them.
Yeah.
Dr. Bebop, you wanna make it rain? Make it rain! You might have to really get into it there. Yeah.
You mean like take the lid off and pour it and fill it with the sludge?
Alright, so.
For a long time on the
I
mountain.
know. Okay, here, I'll do some special areas here. Oh yeah, there we go, the stream effect.
It's a downpour.
Okay, so you can see, once we get enough, you can see it's washing down the mountain, and we can kind of talk about the fact that one side of the mountain might lead into one watershed, the other side of the mountain might lead into a completely different watershed area. Even the factory sludge that's coming down, and eventually it's all, you can see it's already kind of washing into our big body of water down there. So then, after it finishes raining, we can kind of brainstorm ideas, so how could we prevent this from happening? Third grade talks a lot about plants and how plants can help keep like some of those sediments from washing into the water, so we can use some things to add some plants. We can talk about using a fence to keep our cows out of our river, so they can kind of then brainstorm ideas of the prevention, which ultimately is the goal of understanding, right? So,
You smart kids probably know about no-till farming.
some of them do,
Probably do.
yep.
Some of them on farms may have had their parents do the grants for fencing in water, you know, the ponds
That
and
was huge
creek, yeah.
5 years ago.
Yeah, so, that was a very, very condensed version of what we would do with actual students, but, that is one of our examples of hands-on learning that we
That's
are
awesome.
providing to all of our
Great. That's awesome.
elementary
And I
kiddos.
can just see the kids more.
Oh yeah, they love it. They were actually, they're pretty
They would love
good.
it.
Yeah.
They wanna drive the tractor.
Like, no,
Yes.
let me do it.
Yeah.
I hate to date myself, but I can remember teaching watersheds and not really understanding it myself.
Right.
And then like now having something so visual for our kids.
I'm all for more hands-on. And I know that even the stuff that you're working on, you know, making things more visual is important for the kids too. To visualize things and learn. I just don't want them sitting in a Chromebook the whole thing, you know.
Understood. Well, and after they do this, we also have, seeing if Dr. Trosper can get me a mouse real quick, but we have access to our GIS system, so then they can apply the knowledge of watersheds to the map in their local environment. And thank you, I didn't even think about that before.
Stream what they're downstream
Exactly, so actually applying to, and I did this last year at Huddleston Elementary, and so we looked up Huddleston on the map, and we talked about, what creeks do you know? They knew the names of their creeks that were in their local watershed, and you can use this map to zoom into areas and then add different layering effects. Here we go. There's a topographic map, I already have that layer on. So then we can talk about like, well, why on this side of the mountain would it drain this way, but on this side of the mountain it would drain over here into this creek. So then we get into more practical and the impact on them.
And then that's why they call it mountain spring water, so that it doesn't have all these pollutants in it.
Yes,
Very good,
That's beautiful.
awesome,
thank you.
very nice,
Thank you.
love it.
Thank you all.
Now you got a big mess to clean up.
Hurricane will
Close
take
it
care of
off.
Bring in the hazmat team.
it. Hurricane will clean it up.
That's why she has Dr. Trosper, he's the
Yeah.
guy.
That's my goal for
That's
this
your
evening.
role.
All right, Laura, you had some old business you wanted to talk
Just to
about.
check in on, do you know of any other math fees that are going on?
I do have it, look, I have it right here with all
Awesome.
business. So I chatted with the principals. Right now, we have Otter River does a multiplication bee, and they just host that on their own within the school. Jefferson Forest High School sends students to the LU math competition. And they are part of, it's a math club that they have at the school. And last year they sent 5 sophomores and 5 seniors who won at the school level, and they went on to LU. Those are the only 2 schools that say they do anything like a math bee or competition. But I do have 2 elementary schools who are interested in possibly doing something with a math bee. And I'm thinking I might hook them up with Otter River because they're all in close proximity to Otter River to see if they might want to do like a school winter and then 3.
I know Boonesboro Elementary was doing something.
Well, I asked him and he said they hadn't done it for a couple of years. Now, I talked to last year Mrs. Bowyer, our math supervisor, and she says, you know, probably the most familiar math competition is Math Counts. And that's where they actually send students a book and they work math problems and then they send it back in to the company and they score them. It's pretty costly. So I'm thinking that we might just start with the 2 elementary schools that might be interested in doing a multiplication bee with Otter River. And then I will get maybe the principal at Otter River just to share with the elementary principals what she's doing to see if they might all be interested. But there are a couple of things like that are specific to Virginia, but right now Virginia doesn't have like, with the spelling bee, you definitely have like a division, regional, state. And so some regions have a lot with math, some don't really have a lot. So there's not a lot around us, but that doesn't mean we couldn't get involved with some other regions. So, but I did reach out to all the principals and got their, like, what are you doing? So.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. I mean, we obviously are in a technology, science, math boom, I guess, in our world, and so that, you know, that knowing your math and being good at math, build confidence, and
Yeah.
it's also important.
Definitely.
Okay, awesome. And Mr. DePiero, do you have any updates on the library books?
Updates as in reference to,
Well, you were looking at parity, and you were looking at trying to find some other sources as opposed to just only the national or the
well, there was no other source.
American Library
That's what I
Association.
discovered when I was at Liberty, is that she said, welcome to our world. There is no other association other than the 2 that exist. So she says they have the same issue. It's a library at Liberty that is for the elementary ed program. And so it's twice the size of this room. And it is, she goes through the same process we go through, elimination, review, and she said, welcome to our,
So she doesn't do anything else differently? She doesn't have any other ideas?
she just scrutinizes what they purchase. Because there is no association other than the 2. One is one that would be predominantly for public libraries, and one is for school libraries. So, yeah.
I know that speaking with the public libraries, not the school, but the public libraries, they started a program where they ask the community to request books.
And we have the same thing on our website.
Okay.
People can put in requests.
Okay, awesome. All right.
Yep.
If you can send that to me, can you email
Email you
the link to that? So
I think
can-
they're on web pages. You could go to a library, you could go to
Oh, each library?
Yeah.
Go to
I see, okay.
the county website and then to the individual libraries.
Now, the confusing part of that is some of them have more extensive web pages on their library than others.
So you have to go to each individual school.
That's what I did. And Dr. Woodford did the same thing. We kind of set off on the same exploration and came back together and pretty much found the same thing as to what was in the libraries and how you made requests and things like that.
And so some of those books that I had suggested that we look into, have you incorporated any of
I
them?
have
or
not yet.
Recommended them or anything?
I would say the better way to do that is literally having parents request it.
Okay,
Because that to me brings it, so if I'm requesting a certain book, then I have a certain population that's saying, why are you doing that? If you request it as a parent, then it gets legitimately looked at.
Okay.
Now, I don't disagree with any of those, it's just trying to find a proper way to not put the
Yeah, I
target,
mean, that's-
not put the target on you.
that's exactly what, the public school,
Yeah.
the public libraries are doing.
Yeah, you can, and like I said,
Welcoming individual,
we probably need to go through and look at, our library pages are not all consistent. Some are very extensive, some are less,
Well, and that's because of the OCR complaint.
correct?
We don't have staff that just focus on web pages. When we had an OCR complaint, that's why they're very bare, because we have to do so many things to make them ADA compliant, and that's easy if you purchase a web page person who does all your web pages, like you can buy subscriptions and all that. We've tried to do it in-house as an extra duty, and it's hard, like, to keep it up to date. I'm looking at Barry because, like, I don't ever do anything on the webpage because I struggle with, you know, you have to do like alt text and you have to just do the pictures. It's really, really difficult. So a lot of people have pulled things off so we could get through our OCR complaint.
As far as parity, we're probably way ahead of the game on other divisions.
I'm sure we are.
Just because it has been scrutinized way before me,
Yeah,
and so we were amazed when we started going through and looking at books that we didn't have that somebody else might. And what I did was used the list of books in the Maryland case that went to the Supreme Court. And literally there's 20 titles. It took me a while to find them all, but some of them were listed in the Supreme Court would write a pro and a con, I forget what they're called, but they would write the statement, and some of them actually listed the books in them. So I just kept going until I got about 20, just from researching it, and I would say, okay, what would you say, maybe 10% even showed up anywhere?
I think out of total, it wasn't even that. I think it
Yeah.
was like
Couldn't find it.
5. Like it was like minimal.
Yeah, it was really, really small.
Yeah.
And so when you Google other things like Bibles and stuff like that, it's like, whew, man, they're everywhere. So, and even, like I think I said last time at a board meeting, the Berenstein Bears actually have stuff on faith, and I thought that was pretty cool.
yeah, and I'd like to make sure we have the classics too, again, because there was this push to get rid of all the classics, so I would like to make sure.
So I don't know if I said this in a board meeting, but I think it was Cinderella. Was it Cinderella?
I don't remember.
Yeah,
One
you
of them-
said that
One
there
of them I
was,
found over 100 versions.
yeah, there's
Yes.
hundreds of
Wow.
versions, but the
I mean,
classic one
even
is
the, no, the
not.
classic ones were there, but I could find them for just about every native tongue. I could find them from Korea.
In our libraries?
Yeah, I mean, it was
And modern renditions.
Yeah.
Like ever
modern
after.
versions, and so
Okay,
you
well,
wouldn't have had a
make sure
hard
we
time
have the
finding.
classics.
It's amazing how many we had. Alabama version, Smoky Mountain version. That was crazy.
That's funny. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for checking into that. Thanks for looking at that. I appreciate that.
I do wanna go back at some point and meet with those ladies again, cause they have so many librarians there, it's just like, it's a whole building of librarians at Liberty, and they all give you a different perspective of how they reach the conversation.
Oh, they find more books.
The only other thing I had was, that we have talked several times about parent education, especially at the elementary school level, in terms of trying to educate our parents about some of the things that we're implementing in terms of the dangers of smartphones in the hands of young children, and just some of the internet safety things that won't be addressed until the family life curriculum in 4th grade, right? But by then, the horse is out of the barn for a lot of things. So in terms of how do we engage the parents and disseminate some of that information. We talked about, one sheet fact flyers. We talked about engaging them at presentations at the school. They show up for the kids to recite poetry or whatever, and we've got a captive audience. How do we?
I think the last time we spoke, I talked about doing it through a superintendent's letter and then link it where you could go and get resources.
I know at Big Island,
Speak about it publicly and then show it.
Big Island, they incorporated with some kind of art displays, and then they had a meal, a dinner, and then they presented the cybersecurity stuff. And that was pretty effective. They had quite a few parents there, which was good. I don't know if we can do that more.
My goal is to every month, and I just started it last month with Chain of Command, is to pick a topic that is slightly controversial or slightly informative, intriguing, to try to have those conversations with parents.
With how, when?
Starts here, verbally, but
In
also
the school
then
board
goes in,
meetings or?
and then goes into letters or whatever.
Hmm.
Cause I do a periodic, and Kristen works on this with me, periodic superintendent's letter, not just a superintendent's report, but a letter. So if I do that, I think it's maybe 4 times a year to start slipping in.
Well, and
It's
that-
nothing new, it's literally taking something like Executive Order 33 and all of the stuff that book used that they were looking at, and other data, and saying, hey, here's the social media topic. Here's the links that you need to go find, because, and with statistics that say how it affects a young mind. There's several topics that I'd like to interject during the course of the year.
I think it's a small percentage of parents that are gonna take that information and actually go home and get on their computers and look it up. And, whereas if you hand them a fact sheet when they come to watch the kids do a play at school, if you hand them a fact sheet that has half a dozen bullet points, they're gonna see that. Whether it resonates or not, depends on how many living brain cells they have. But I think the more venues that we have that we can educate them, the more traction we're gonna get.
And there's some big events that some of these schools do, like I know that they did a glow party at Boonesboro Elementary, and it was packed, like everybody was there. So that's a captive audience to be able to say, hey, I wanna make sure you're keeping your kids safe off, internet's. And even in your newsletter, if you're saying, okay, these are some issues we're seeing in our county, among our schools or whatever, please talk to your kids about it or whatever. Because we have a little bit more of a handle on what's going on county-wise than the average parent who's just working and trying to feed their kids and going home and putting them in bed and all of that stuff. So, just kind of
I just wanna keep the
Maybe even a-
information out there in front of us so
Right.
that we're active, so that it becomes part of their strategic plan, right, to incorporate parental education into it, that it's not just about the kids, it's about what their home life is, because we've seen that time and time again, that the schools that excel are the ones that have the greatest parental involvement. And, parental involvement is a strength from all your SWAT work,
yeah, it's important.
and if we can capitalize on that, improve it, then the kids are gonna get more traction at school.
Well, and I'm kind of picturing like a red light, yellow light, green light, like be aware this is very dangerous, this is going on, yellow light, keep an eye on this, and green light, look what our accomplishments are, I don't know, just making sure our parents are well aware of what's going on in the community in positive ways as well as dangers, to them. I mean, I know as a parent, my son was 14 when he first got a cell phone. We were trying to do a flip phone. We didn't want a smartphone, but they had, well, if if you do a flip phone, it costs you more money. They had this whole thing. And as soon as we gave him that smartphone, he was 14. And I saw him again hardly, you know.
Never saw
It was, he would come and eat and sleep and that's it, you know, he was on his phone and it was just, it was very, very, I mean, we tried to do, you know, okay, it has to be put away at 9 o'clock and whatever, but it was a huge change in him. And I don't think parents realize that and they'll,
No, they realize it because they go to their bedroom and do the same thing.
well,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
They go to
But
sleep
I don't
with
think
it.
they realize
They go
that
to sleep
until
with it
they
on their
get the
stomach.
kids the phone and then they realize, oh, wow.
I mean, I do it because I've said it before and I don't know why, but I need to know the baseball scores before I go to bed. I don't know why. It doesn't change my sleep, it doesn't change. I just, you know, it's the way we now, you know, move. We get news instantly, you know? I mean, it's like, I'll end this thought on this. When I was a kid growing up in the 60s and 70s, Vietnam was raging. We only heard about it from 6 to 6:30 at night. That's when the national news played it.
All
We never knew
24/7.
another thing. Now you can see everything that happens everywhere instantly. It's too much.
Yes, it is. All right,
Yeah.
shall we adjourn?
We shall.
Anybody else? We
Do the
are-
topics we have look good
I
for
like,
next
yes,
time?
I like that.
And if there's
What
anything,
topics for next time?
the CTE, high demand jobs and credentials.
Oh, those that you
Uh-huh.
said.
And we're gonna introduce you to Zello, our new career planning platform. And then Mrs. Jennings is gonna share about our high schoolers and working with them starting in middle school on their transition plans for life and after school, I should say life after school, and how the DARS program, we work with them to support students as they're transitioning
So one other
out
thing,
of high school.
one other thing is, we never, what's the status on the survey for the dress code? Where is that at?
She's been working on it, and so, to be honest with you, we've had so many little crises. And it has sat aside for this week.
That's fine, it's not an urgent thing, I mean, I'd like to
No, she
kind of discuss
started.
it and not, we don't need to move on it until next year, you know, but I
No,
just wanna make sure that
It'll be done.
people
It'll be
knew
done.
that there's, so will we get another opportunity to see the updated, okay,
No, she already started. She started that.
okay. Thank you, thanks for all you guys are doing.
Now we're adjourned.
Thank you.